Adam Creighton is the American correspondent for The Australian. He's in Washington right now where it's very early, so thank you for getting up for us, mate. Now, let's jump into a couple of things here. Dylan Mulvaney is a transgender woman who is now a spokesperson for Nike, but you've written today about corporate wokeism. And also, it's also important to note here, remember when Gillette in a Super Bowl ad tried to move from the best a man could get to sort of talking about toxic masculinity? All this stuff's great with the marketing department, but generally doesn't lead to more sales, does it?
Well, look, I think the point I was trying to make is that pretty much every large company in the US has gone massively woke in recent years, and it has not affected their profit or revenue. And I think that's the interesting question. I mean, I'm sure I share with you that we'd like that to be the case. They engage these people. The case of Dylan Mulvaney, of course, that probably alienates a large share of their clients and customers, and yet they do it anyway. And so I think the interesting question is why? And I think it's because left-wing groups, think tanks, militant groups are far more harsh in their denunciation than groups on the other side of politics who traditionally have just said, look, leave businesses to do whatever they want to do. And so all the pressure is coming from one side of politics, if you like, to behave in this way. And then the other point, I think, is that the shares of these companies are no longer held by ordinary people, by households. Back in the 50s, something like 90% of stock was held by ordinary individuals, whereas now it's something like a quarter. And the rest is held by the BlackRocks and Vanguards of the world, these very large fund managers who generally all espouse these ESG views and insist that the companies they own do as well.
His last name doesn't come to mind, but there's a bloke called Vivek who's running for the Republican nomination. He won't get there, but he's written some interesting books about woke corporate culture in particular. That'll be interesting to see him on a national stage. Again, he won't end up getting much attention between Trump and everyone else. But this is starting to be a decision-making option for people about who they start sending to Congress or the White House, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think that's true, and I think he's doing well. I don't think he's going to get to the final round, of course, but he's extremely articulate, and he's very good on this topic of ESG and what's actually driving it. Yeah, look, I think ordinary Americans and ordinary Australians, for that matter, would be more and more shocked at some of the political views being espoused by these large corporations. I mean, I think most of them don't pay much attention. They just want to buy a Coke or a beer or a bra or whatever it is, and they don't really pay much attention to the politics of the corporate end of the company. But certainly, if it continues to go down this path, it will become a general issue. And President Biden recently vetoed a rule that would have made it a little harder for US corporate boards to look at ESG, which was a interesting politics anyway. Republicans have been talking about that a lot here.
Yeah, it's certainly a big part of the DeSantis push. I talk too much, mate, so alas, we're out of time. We'll talk to you again very soon. Of course, Adam Creighton, you can read him there in the Australian newspaper, and thank you for getting up nice and early for us in Washington.